Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you'll learn to master the business of yoga. MBOM is a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Amanda Kingsmith. I'm a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a yoga business coach, and a total business geek. Here at MBOM, you'll learn everything you need to know to create a sustainable yoga business by learning from myself and guests from around the world about how they built their yoga businesses, and about how you too can become a successful yoga teacher, studio owner, and much more. All right, let's dive in. Hey friends, I just wanted to pop in and talk a little bit about MBO behind the scenes. When I entered the yoga world as a teacher, I was surprised by how many yoga teachers were struggling with the business side of yoga. And that's why I created MBOM. MBOM helps yoga teachers and studio owners become entrepreneurs. It helps you to go from surviving to thriving with your yoga business. I am on a mission to change the yoga industry, to teach yoga teachers and studio owners about the business of yoga, and to help you feel more confident, successful, and abundant. After releasing hundreds of podcast episodes, I want to create content that dives deeper into helping yoga entrepreneurs thrive and elevate their businesses. This is where MBOM Behind the Scenes comes in. Each week, you will get bonus content from the weekly guest or myself, diving deeper into how you can take the teachings and apply them to your business. This podcast is designed for yoga teachers and studio owners who are ready to take it to the next level. If you enjoy MBOM and have been looking for an affordable way to learn more, this is it. For the cost of 2 lattes per month, you will get never-before-heard content that you can't access anywhere else that will give you tangible ways to dive deeper into your yoga business. If this sounds like something you're interested in, let's dive in. Head on over to patreon.com/MBOM yoga and sign up to get behind the scenes now. Once again, that's patreon.com/MBOM yoga to get all the exclusive behind the scenes content. I'll see you there. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the MBOM podcast. I'm really excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show, and also just wanted to wish you a happy November 1st. I hope that wherever in the world you're tuning in from, you're having a fabulous start to your fall so far, as well as to your November. This episode is brought to you in part by Offering Tree, an all-in-one, easy-to-use online business platform that I am so happy to be working with. If you're looking to save time, energy, and money, I definitely recommend checking out Offering Tree. And I'm going to tell you more about what they have to offer you as a yoga teacher a little bit later on, so stay tuned for that. But don't forget to grab your special discount at offeringtree.com/MBOM. Now, on to today's episode of the podcast. I am very excited to be joined by Juzbi Walia. Juzbi is a yoga teacher from India who recently moved from Abu Dhabi to Ontario, Canada, where she joined me for this episode. And during the pandemic, she went through a pretty big career change, leaving her corporate career to start her yoga business. So she shares on this episode what it was like to start a yoga business during a global pandemic, how it's gone for her, what she's learned, and then how she was able to kind of, move from country to country, keep her business going, and what she's learned through that. And then we also discuss burnout. This is one of the specialties she had from working in corporate that she's brought over to her yoga business. We talk about, what burnout is, how it affects us, and then how yoga teachers can cope with their own burnout, as well as much more. So this episode has lots of goodness in it. I found it so inspiring to hear Juzbi's story about starting her business during the pandemic, moving to a whole different country, continuing to build her business, as well as it's always, very empowering and inspiring to hear about burnout and how we can handle it as yoga teachers. If you're, pandemic 18, 20 months, whatever it's been now, has been anything like mine, then there's been lots of points of stress and worry and concern and burnout as well within our businesses. So hopefully this will be valuable to you. I'm very excited to share this conversation. So without further ado, here is Juzbi. Welcome to the podcast today, Juzbi. I'm really excited to have you here with me today.
I'm excited to be here too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you start by sharing where in the world you're joining us from today?
Toronto.
Amazing. You're in my home country, but I'm not there anymore.
I know it's a lovely, I came here 2 months ago and I moved from Abu Dhabi. Actually, I was living in Abu Dhabi for the last 9 years. So it's definitely an extreme, shift in the sense that Abu Dhabi it gets really hot in the summers. And obviously, Canada is known for being really cold. And, just it's interesting. The move has been really rewarding and challenging, but I'm really happy with the move and I'm just enjoying myself and also getting to know the yoga scene in the city. So it's been really interesting for me these couple of months. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine that's a big move and a big change in culture and a big change in climate. We're only in fall so far. So hopefully you're staying warm so far in Ontario because winter gets really
Yeah.
cold.
I know. I'm kind of looking for, I'm trying to like tell myself that yeah, I got to enjoy the Christmas and the Christmas markets and my first snowfall. So I'm really trying to get excited about it and look at it from a positive point of view. But internally, I'm a little scared. Like I haven't experienced -20, -25 weather. So it's going to be new for me, but I'm all up for the challenge. Everybody clearly goes about their day quite well. So I'm sure I'm going to get used to it and embrace it.
Yeah, for sure. You pretty much just need a really warm jacket. And then in Canada, we call it winter hats, toques. So you just need to get yourself a winter jacket and a toque and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and I'm all prepped up.
Amazing. Well, I'm so excited to chat with you today. And I'd love to just start by hearing a little bit about your yoga journey and kind of how you got into yoga.
Sure. So I got my teacher training in 2019 in December. And since then, I've been teaching yoga. So it's been a fairly new profession for me, but I've got into it with all heart, mind, and just giving it my all. And it's been really rewarding. It has had its ups and downs in terms of getting clients and just making sure that my business is on have steady group of clients as I leave Abu Dhabi, go to India for 4 months, and then finally make the shift to Toronto. So just making sure that the health of my business is okay as I make these massive transitions has been challenging, but it's taught me so much, especially about the online world. And now that I'm here, I'm really excited to get to know people here and reestablish myself as a yoga teacher within the city. But really, my journey from being a corporate person of 15 years to yoga not um, was not that, I would say, instantaneous. It's not as if I just woke up one day and decided to change my line. I think there were many years of feeling burnt out in my job and finding a real lack of meaning, perhaps, or I had all these symptoms that I didn't even know existed. I did not know what's the difference between burnout and stress. And whatever is happening to me is actually a common phenomena and it's nothing to do with my, quote unquote, inherent laziness or my, level of dedication or work ethic. It's certain things that are happening in my body and in my environment that I'm not being cognizant of because I just don't have the education around it. So the whole journey of then realizing I'm burned out, and that's an interesting story in and of itself. Uh, and then realizing that I need to change my line and I need to do something that's a little bit more meaningful for me was took its time. There were a few months of reflection, actually a few years of just trying to figure out what is it that I want to do. And then realizing I want to be a yoga teacher was almost like an aha moment, but it was years of like trying to search what I wanted to do and figuring out what is it that I don't like doing, that I got into yoga. And yoga really was one of the most important resource that I had in my life at that time that helped me recover from burnout. And each time I would go to a yoga studio and work and do a class with my mentor, I found this renewed sense of confidence. I could do hard things. I could suddenly be in a different environment where I'm not being measured up against anyone else. I could breathe, I could relax, and I was getting stronger in my body. I was taking charge of my life. I had felt like I had lost a sense of agency, a lost sense of control when I was burnt out. That's one of the most common symptoms. And then suddenly, when I started going to the yoga studio and realizing that I'm improving in my asanas and being able to meditate just a little longer, all these things gave me my sense of agency back. And the aha moment was when I realized, oh my God, I love going to the studios. That's my sanctuary. And I just love the teachers I work with. I'm in awe of them. I love their leadership quality. I love the way they allow me to just be. And why should like that? It's amazing. And maybe I should be a yoga teacher. And this is something that never crossed my mind until I had quit my job, and I was in India, just that's where I come from. And I was just giving myself white space and not thinking for the first time in my life what I need to do next. And that's really the thing about giving yourself white space that is so important when you're not trying to grasp something, which is so much, part of what the yoga philosophy tells us. And you're not overthinking or trying to grasp, and you're just for the first time letting yourself be. And that's when your brain starts like, you know, getting a breather and opening up possibilities for yourself. And there's a lot of scientific evidence around this concept of white space. And I think just by allowing myself to not think about what I want to do in the future for a few months, not for a long time, but just a couple of months, giving myself permission to have that break. And I know I'm speaking from a place of privilege. I know a lot of people may not have this privilege in their lives, but I'd been working for over 15 years, and I'd had my savings. And I said, you know what, I can give myself 2-3 months off and just not think about what I want to do next. And that's when I saw this ad about yoga teacher training for 200 hours conducted by my mentor, who I used to go and do asanas with. And that's when I decided I want to do this. So it was an aha moment, but it took at least 2-3 years of being in this process of self-discovery. And I may also mention that last year, since I'm talking about my life of transition, it's been a year of awakening, because not only did I decide to leave my corporate job and become a full-time teacher, and also leave Abu Dhabi and come to Toronto, I also ended my 9 years of relationship with my husband. I got divorced last year. The good thing is that if I really have to look at the good part, it's the fact that we did it in the most graceful and amazing way possible. But all these things happened, last year. And at that time, I didn't know what the next thing would be. So these things happened on its own. It unfolded on its own. And the way I look at it is, I think, it just bringing me towards where I want to be in life. And these are all intentional choices and transitions. Absolutely hard, for sure, but a step in the right direction. And this whole idea of stepping into your courage and taking chances with your life that makes you feel alive, that is really rooted in your why, is one of the most empowering feeling ever. And while I've had these massive changes and clearly a lot of challenging events, I think they're all leading me towards the place I want to be or where I want to go. And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I just feel so inspired to hear your story and just all the brave things that you've done, especially in the last couple of years. I think, working a corporate job that was probably, well paying and stuff like that is hard to leave, especially when you've been there for so long. And then obviously, a relationship of nearly a decade is hard to leave, and a country that you've been in for nearly a decade is hard to leave. And so it's just really, really inspiring to hear that you were able to kind of look at what you truly wanted and what you truly needed out of life and make some big changes. And those are, not small changes to be making, like career, relationship, as well as the country that you're living in. So just want to acknowledge that. And I'd love to hear, so you had left your corporate job, you've taken a bit of space, which I think is a really beautiful gift to give yourself. You see this teacher training, you go and do it. And then did you start teaching right away, or what did your teaching journey kind of look like?
So I graduated in December. Jan and Feb of 2020 was when I was literally begging anyone and everyone to do free classes with me, because I just wanted to get better at my cueing and being a good teacher. So I started giving free classes to friends and family. There weren't that many, but whatever I could do, I did. And then, of course, COVID happened. And suddenly all my plans kind of went disarray. But I'll tell you a couple of things that I did really well, in the sense that a couple of decisions that I made that were really, in hindsight, were good decision. I went into teaching with a teacher's hat and an entrepreneur's hat. So I was very clear from the beginning that I need to look at it as a business right off the bat, because number one, I knew enough about the teaching world to know that just going to studios and having a full-time job may not meet my day-to-day expenses, etc. So I need to definitely look at it as a business, and therefore I hired Madhu, who's mentored me for the last year, and we worked on things together, whether it's my vision or a lot of mindset work actually, and getting myself out there. And I started doing market research. So that's how I used my time in COVID, when things were, and you got to realize I was completely new in the field. I did not have connections in yoga community. So I needed to start somewhere. So I started looking at, market research, trying to hone my niche, trying to see what is burnout like for people, and how can I help how can I help people with burnout? And that led to some interesting possibilities or opportunities, where a couple of people said, listen, we had this great conversation. Why don't we start doing yoga together? Or somebody connected me to somebody else. And then I did one online class for American Express global team. That was really interesting. So I really started tapping into my personal network and just putting myself out there, putting my website and saying, hey, I'm around, I'm visible, started putting a lot of content on Instagram. And I think what happened when I started approaching it from a business point of view and getting really into digital marketing, which is also my jam, by the way. Like, I love digital marketing, and I've been in communication for a while before I, turned into a yoga teacher. So I started applying all that knowledge in what I was doing. And what Instagram did to me was it kind of put me in a position of a thought leader, or at least was laying the foundational work for that journey. And a lot of my friends and family who knew me started feeling that I'm legit. They started noticing me in a different light, and they wanted to work with me. So I may not have got a lot of strangers, so to speak, from Instagram, but I definitely got the buy-in from people I already knew. And that started my process of teaching online last year. And then when the studios opened, I started doing the studios round. So I was lucky. I was in a space where I was teaching in 2 studios. I had a bunch of online clients that I used to work with in the mornings. And I also did private yoga during the weekend and beach yoga. So my schedule was full within, I would say 6 months into being a yoga teacher, in the middle of, COVID happening, and in the middle of pandemic. So it was an interesting journey, and now that I'm here, I'm planning to restart all that again. I still have my online clients, I still work with them, but just to get my foot in the door and have my own corporate yoga company is something that I'm consciously building as I go along.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing that. And I think it's just really incredible to hear that you were able to hit the ground running, especially thinking, back to the end of 2019. What a crazy time to become a yoga teacher. And obviously, I guess this is like your one experience with starting, so you don't have anything to compare with. But did you find that there were like challenges happening as, things were closing? Or I guess, what was Abu Dhabi even like kind of during the early phases of the pandemic? Like, did everything close down?
Yes, everything closed down. It was as bad as it was everywhere else. So we were locked up for many months, and then there was, exclusive social groups being formed. So it was pretty much how the world was functioning and behaving. But our studios did open up around August, July, August. So that was a time frame when I started venturing out. And I know at that time, a lot of other countries were still closed, especially when you compare it to Canada or parts of Europe. So that way we were perhaps slightly lucky that we did open doors a little before other countries decided to, and we could keep the cases in control, a little bit in context to what is happening everywhere else. So I was lucky in the sense that I could start going to the studios well into August. But then that also was not always stable because we were taking decisions month on month about whether to continue the yoga studio and whether to keep it open or not. Uh, but just dealing with the uncertainty of the environment and then being a new yoga teacher and also putting a business hat and trying to understand what it even means to have your own business. Like, what are the fundamental? What do you have to do to get there? Trying to navigate all these three things together was challenging for sure, but it gave me a lot of, I would say, energy. It was inspiring. I had this, I could clarify my vision. I could see what I wanted to do with my life. So I think for the most part, I was inspired and excited, and I was very focused. And I wouldn't say that I've had an amazing, successful journey because I've just started out, and I'm very cognizant of that. But I would say that it has given me enough feedback that I'm on the right path and that things are opening, the possibilities out there for me to explore. And that's what I would tell all yoga teachers, that just hang in there and do your best, because this industry is growing and it's getting bigger by the day. There are lots and lots of people who need yoga, and we are in the right space. So if you feel that you're in the right profession and this is what you want to do, don't get discouraged by where you are right now in your business. If those people who are watching right now who I guess who can resonate with this, that it takes time. I'm giving myself at least 3 to 5 years to get established properly, because that's how much time it can take. And I would also recommend just having conversations with other entrepreneurs from different industries, just to understand their journey and widen their perspective, so that you really understand where do you stand. Are you being too hard on yourself, or are you being a little bit too complacent? Just to get that perspective, the outside perspective is really important. And I guess my main message is to hang in there, not get disheartened.
Yeah, for sure. I think that that's a really good reminder for people, and especially anyone who, like yourself, became a teacher kind of close to or during the pandemic, that just kind of feels like, this is a hard time to get things going. And I know you mentioned before that you had Instagram and you were kind of getting people, who you knew. What was sort of the process for you like in terms of actually getting, clients and creating online classes, especially, during this like crazy time with COVID?
Yeah, so I started approaching Instagram from the business point of view, right? So my content is all about yoga. How does yoga help people prevent or recover from burnout? And then some, posts about my life in general. And then I was basically trying to get, I guess, clients from DM. So that was my route, get conversions directly from Instagram and have people DM me to then start working out with me, or become my clients. The other approach was to, have them hang out with me on Instagram and then come into my emails and then um, start getting to know about my offering. So I've been kind of experimenting on both sides, and I've got few clients from the online world, especially through Instagram, but I've also got a lot of people from word of mouth or just within my friends and family network. And I think that is a little bit of a faster approach, at least in my experience, to because Instagram and all these digital things are the long-term game. You're gonna reap benefits somewhere down the line, because it takes time for people to understand who you are, spread the awareness, for you to figure out what your brand represents, what are the conversations you want to have, what's your tone, what's your style. And then the process of being consistent with your posting, writing high quality content, figuring out that system that works for you. So there's a lot of thing that goes into keeping up a platform in the right way, and being and allowing yourself to get used to all these things and learn these things is a journey. It takes a while. So for me, it's definitely a long term game. It's not something that is reaping a lot of benefits yet. While it has given me some online clients, but I've also have to put a lot of energy into it to just get those clients. So I really need people to be aware of that it's not sometimes, it can look as if here's the strategy and here's the content and you just keep posting and, if you're not getting clients then you're doing something wrong. But the truth is that there's a lot of unknown with these platforms, the way the algorithm works, the way the reach is for people who pay for sponsored ads. So there's a lot of unknowns and things that are out of our control. So the best we can do is to have that as our strategy. This is again coming from my personal experience. People may have had varied and different experience, so that's great. But at least from where I come from, I feel that Instagram is a long-term game. It'll take time to build up. It'll yield you results at its own place. You don't know when it's going to come. That's when you got to practice that, vairagya concept. But having people that you can network with, just getting to know as many people as possible, building a growing community, word of mouth, at least from the start, that's when one should focus on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing that. And I completely agree with that. I think those are some really great tips and strategies. And I think that sometimes when we start out, I think we kind of think like, oh, we have to do like all the things and reach all the people and have all the classes. And I think it actually works really well to kind of, think about who's in your network, who who you could start teaching, and then kind of, build up from there a little bit, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, 100%.
Hey, yogis. We're just taking a quick little break from the podcast to talk about on-demand video. I've seen how having an on-demand video library has really improved customer retention for 2 yoga studios that I work with. That's why I was so excited to create a free course all about video on demand with Offering Tree. This course will tell you all you need to know about using an online store to offer live stream classes, courses, a membership, and have a library of on-demand videos. The best part is that it will only take an hour to go through the course, and you can do it on your own schedule. You can get access to the course at offeringtree.com/course. As yoga teachers or studio owners, our goal is to always retain current customers and attract new customers. But it has to be easy because we're wearing so many hats all the time between actually teaching, sequencing classes, running our marketing, our sales, paying ourselves, paying our bills, all of that stuff. And that's exactly what this course is about. I'll teach you how to develop an on-demand video strategy that's simple, easy, and really works. So whether it's the strategy, marketing, pricing, or video editing process that's holding you back, this course can help you. So head on over to offeringtree.com/course to get started. All right, now back to the episode. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about, your, I guess, like where the idea came from to move to Canada. That's like a pretty big move, especially during, again, this crazy time. What sort of inspired you, especially after getting this momentum with your business in Abu Dhabi, to move across the world?
Sure. So to be honest, the short answer is that I got my PR in 2019. That's when I first came to Toronto. I love the city. I was here for a week, and at that time, it was just a plan B, something that I may execute in the future. Like, it was nice to have this residency in a different country, so that if at all or at that time it was we, and it's now I, but if at all I want to move to another country, that's a good option. Also, just an FYI, Abu Dhabi does not give you a residency. You're not a resident of Abu Dhabi. Your residency status is attached to your job. So the minute you leave a job or leave your business, you're not a resident anymore. So it's very much attached to your job. And so I think at the back of my mind, I never felt completely at home in Abu Dhabi. I think it's got to do with this kind of link that they have with the status. And I'm all, something I've also noticed something about myself is that I really love adventure. I'm really drawn to adventure. I love having new experiences. I've lived in many cities in the world. I've lived in, London and New York and Bombay. at Abu Dhabi, and now I'm in Toronto. So without realizing, I think I'm inherently someone who likes adventure, who seeks new things, new sights and sounds. I mean, before COVID, I used to travel a lot, just seeing places. That's one of the things I used to enjoy the most. And so it really came from a sense of adventure. It was also a strategic move, I must say, because I think Toronto is one of those cities that is really high on fitness as a culture. That's a collective value of the people who are here. Maybe I can even say the entire country. And it's really nice to see people just walking down the street in their yoga pants and, embracing fitness in such an amazing way. So I felt that I'm in the right time, in the right place. Like this is a time when I should be in a city that's thriving with fitness and opportunities for yoga. And I just wanted adventure. I think after coming out of a relationship after 9 years, I just thought, you know what, let me just be on an upward trajectory and make bold decision. I've already come this far. I've taken some really bold decision. I think it just gives you that courage muscles to keep going at it and keep making decisions that are good for you, but they may be hard. So yeah, that's how I'm here.
Yeah, for sure. I love that too. The idea of like kind of strengthening that muscle. I feel like I can personally relate to that. Like in times where I've, challenged myself to step out of my comfort zone, it's like it gets easier and easier versus if you're kind of just like in your like daily routine or, just kind of living your life very
Yeah.
comfortably, which there's nothing wrong with doing that
Yeah.
as well. It's like it feels so much bigger to do that. It's like once you've made that one step, like, quitting your job and taking some space and doing your teacher training, it's like you've got that momentum to really go for what you want.
Absolutely, 100%. It just builds up, one thing after the other, one courageous step after the other, and it just builds up, and you become a lot more resilient as you start taking actions, so 100%.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about what it's been like to, transition your business to, a new country, new time zone, new clients. Like, what has it been like kind of getting started as a yoga teacher in a new place?
So far, it's been challenging. I'm still working on my business. So, I'm trying to figure out the studios around, where can I build relationships, where can I go and work. I've got some online clients that I work with. I also do digital marketing, by the way, and that's something that I've uh, because I was in communication for the last 15 years, it kind of made sense for me to leverage my skills and offer VA services and digital marketing services to fellow yoga teachers. So I've got some clients going on that space too, and that's just one of the things I'm doing to make sure that I'm able to diversify my income stream as I build my career in teaching. And as I go forward, I have this vision of building Juzbi Yoga as a corporate wellness brand in Toronto, and I want to give my yoga offerings to companies and employees outside of the studio environment who don't have the time or the energy or have the priority to take out that time and go into a studio and do their yoga, but they need it because they're feeling burnt out or they have mental health issues, maybe chronic stress. So I want to give that opportunity to companies and employees and just be yoga to their studio, to their workplace, excuse me. So that's what I'm building towards. I don't know how long it'll take, but I'm, hustling every day and seeing where that lands me.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool to hear. And yeah, I would imagine that especially during, the craziness that's going on and the restrictions and stuff specifically in Ontario, it's probably been hard to kind of get yourself out there and meet people and like learn a new city and, a new yoga culture and that type of thing. Have you been able to kind of, get in with some studios, like meet some studio owners? Like, how has that been going for you?
Yeah, I think my approach right now, to be honest, is to build relationship with the studio owners. So, and again, this is something you can only do with few studios in terms of buying classes and then building relationship. You probably can't do it with every studio that exists, and you may not even want to do that because there's a location criteria to look at. You also want to see if it's the right fit for you, if something that you want to do, if there's a studio that really is like-minded and holds your values. So there are all these considerations that one has to make. But in spite of all that, there's a good amount of studios in Toronto that are existing, and we all know that there's an oversupply of yoga teachers, which is a great thing, by the way, because I think the world needs yoga and they need as many yoga teachers as possible. And just a segue, I think, with the whole sensory overload and, just what happened with Instagram and Facebook just a couple of days ago, and knowing that how addicted all of us are to our phones and our social media, I think we need as many yoga teachers as possible to provide that space where you can get out of that information overwhelmed world and the world that we inhabit of sensory overload, and really reconnect to yourself. So I do look at the fact that there's, quote unquote oversupply of yoga teachers as a positive thing. I really want yoga to be a widespread resource, frankly. But if you ask me from the perspective of getting a studio job, which I would love to get, because I love teaching big spaces, it's teaching in big spaces with a lot of people. The way my approach to this is, and this may work for any new yoga teachers listening to your episode and wants to know how to go about it, at least I can just share what I'm doing, is that try and build relationship with few studios, just by signing up for their classes and having maybe a conversation before I do that class and a conversation after I do that class, and just getting to know them, also following them on social media, making sure you're, commenting, it's coming from an authentic place and you're really getting interested in what they're doing, so that when you finally do approach them, there is a bit of connection. They either know you from social media or from the classes that you've taken, and there's a bit of a rapport going. And I think that's a smarter approach than just putting a cold email, because they anyway have lots of emails on their email list. The other thing that I'm happy to share is what I'm doing. If whoever wants to take this tip, please go ahead and do it. I'm also making these small videos that I'm attaching to my emails and saying, obviously, you got my resume on the PDF, but I just wanted to drop in a 30-second or a 1-minute video on the 3 reasons why I am a great fit for your studio. And then talk about those 3 reasons. If you're good with being on the camera and if that's your asset, I say use that strength and just make that video. If nothing else, even if they don't stay, even if they don't see the video, they will notice that you've tried to do something different and that you're really making an effort and that you're thinking out of the box. And it may be rewarding, again, an experiment, but I'm just trying to see how I can stand out from, stand out in my resume and make sure I have a connect with the studio that I'm trying to approach.
Cool. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it's a great idea to, add a little video to your resume pitch so people can actually like put a face to a name and hear your voice and kind of get your vibe and that type of thing. So I think that's really cool, and definitely curious to hear, how that goes for you as, time progresses. And one other thing that I wanted to ask you about was, I know this is something you kind of specialize in, is around burnout. I know you mentioned earlier on that was something that kind of really triggered you to actually quit your job. And, now one of the things you're going to be doing with yoga is working with people in corporate who I'm imagining would be dealing with burnout. And I think that for so many people over the last, 18, 20 months, whatever we're into with this pandemic, they've been feeling kind of like this burnout. So I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on like, what burnout is and maybe how we can use yoga to manage it a little bit.
Sure. And I would love to also talk about, burnout within the yoga teachers community and uh, how it can rear its ugly head when we are teaching yoga, and how to sort of safeguard ourselves from being burnt out. So yeah, so with burnout, it's interesting because it's insidious. It's really pervasive in our society, and yet it's often looked over because there's not enough education around what's the difference between chronic stress and burnout. And to add to that, we live in this culture of information overwhelm, as I mentioned earlier, and there are so many people who, you know, come up as experts about burnout, and everybody has something to say. So there is a lot of misinformation around it, which can be confusing. So, at least for me, I just choose to really follow the work done by some pretty credible thought leaders, scientists who are looking at this topic extensively and coming out with findings and research. And I tend to, follow those people rather than, unfortunately, the stuff that I see on social media. Not to say those, people who are burnout coaches are not doing a great job. It's that I want to make sure that the information I'm getting is solid and it's coming from sources I trust. Um, so first of all, I think I would encourage everyone to research what burnout is and understand if what they're experiencing is stress or burnout, because there are certain common symptoms that we all experience when we are burnt out, but the causes could be different. So one of the symptoms could be that you find there's a loss of meaning in your work, you're procrastinating your work, you are not inspired to get up in the morning and get back into action. Therefore, you procrastinate. There's a sense of overwhelm. You're questioning your life choices sometimes. You don't feel that your life is under your control. You lack a sense of agency, something that I spoke about earlier on. And you're getting fatigued and tired and snappy, and there are things that are happening in your body that you're ignoring. And often we get into this burnout phase because of the stories that we have in our head. For example, for me, I thought this is the price that you pay for success. When I was in a toxic environment and working 12 hours a day and seeing my bosses, pretty much work the same hours, I just thought that this is the price for success. We are consultants. I'm in a competitive world. I am dealing with some really top government clients of Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and I'm really at the forefront of running these campaigns. This is what it looks like in reality. I got to put in the hours, I got to do this. But again, really investigating our stories and seeing, is it really true? Do we really need to work so hard and sacrifice the rest of our lives to be in this position? Is it really worth it? So just having these conversations and knowing what are the stories that are your blind spots or are misguided, and just being able to really shaft the external stuff or the stories that the society tells you to what you truly know about yourself, which is why yoga is so important, because at the end of it, we are trying to get to know ourselves. We are reconnecting with our intuition, which is easy to sort of go from our lives the minute we start engaging with the world with a sense of rush and with this kind of forensic energy that we get up in the morning and work for these 12 hours, do our jobs, do our errands. We're always outside in. And so having that 1 hour to yourself, having those 20 minutes to reconnect, over time builds that intuition, and it changes the way you make decisions. There's a little bit more clarity. And that's why yoga is so powerful beyond the physical aspects of it. So if anybody's feeling burnt out, the first thing I would say is just investigate the stories that you're telling yourself and really examine the causes of it. Is it due to being overworked and underappreciated? Maybe you're not overworked. It's because you find a lack of meaning in what you do. So there are so many things around burnout, and just understanding what is it that's causing you, and then knowing what the symptoms are that I spoke about, knowing that you're not inherently lazy if you're not feeling inspired and you're procrastinating. And if you're going through an existential crisis, it's a phenomena that's happening to every 1 in 4 or 5 person in the world right now. It's that common. Just knowing that this is a common human experience and you need education around it is the first step. And in terms of how do you cope with it? So if I talk about from the perspective of yoga teachers. First of all, I would say that, it's very easy to give advice such as have your own boundaries and learn to say no, and, all of that stuff. And I'm not disregarding any of those, important advice. But what I would say is that I understand what it's like to be a yoga teacher, especially if you're full time, and how hard it is to say no to extra subs and extra classes. But it's about getting your agency back and really looking at your life and saying, okay, what are the things I can really change? So are my classes spread out, throughout the day? Am I like switching between giving a class and then being on my computer and then going and doing a class again? And is that sapping my energy? So if that's the case, how can I change that for my own energy needs? Can I stack my classes? Can I have that conversation with a yoga studio and say that after 3 months, can I be on this schedule because this current class time is not working for me? And studios are happy to accommodate if you give them, a heads up few months before, and they are happy to reschedule. They do it all the time anyway. So just taking back control and taking your, again, a sense of agency and making these choices actively. If you are growing your online teaching experience in your online classes, how can you change the timing so that you're stacking things like that? If you're anyway overworking and you have a lot of classes that you're teaching, can you be a little strategic and think about, can I do an online course so that I'm not literally making money by putting in the hours? How can I change certain things in my business? It may not happen overnight. It may be something that I have to work on for 2-3 years, but can I start putting the seeds? And how would that change the way I'm living my life and I'm living my career? So these are hard decisions, but it all starts from being super practical about what is it that you can change? What is it that you have control in your life that you can change? So I would start from there. I would also say that give yourself a lot of grace and compassion, because the kind of work we're doing is not easy and everybody's trying to do their best. So when you tell yourself that I'm not working hard enough, or what's wrong with me, why am I feeling lazy, why am I not inspired, we all go through those moments of feeling uninspired. If you're a yoga teacher for many years, you may feel that your classes are not being creative enough, or you're doing the same, you're in an autopilot. And so many of us, whether we are yoga teachers or not, have these phases in our lives when we feel that we are on an autopilot. Our routine is the same, our stuff is the same. So maybe the burnout is not because you actually are now thinking about, oh my God, did I cheat? Did I take the right profession? Is yoga teaching still meant for me? It may be that you just need to inject a little bit of inspiration and change things up, try something different, see whether it still is meaningful to you. Take chances, explore yourself, in a different capacity. Do a workshop, step up your game. If you're not in a position to step up your game because you are obviously feeling fatigued and drained, which is again a common symptom of burnout, then I would say, prioritize your self-care, go back to yoga, whatever makes you feel happy and satisfied, start doing more of that. And we all know that. Again, I'm not saying anything that people are not well aware of, but it's wild to me that how many of us know this, and yet we find it so difficult to prioritize self-care. We find it so difficult to put our needs before anyone else's. But each time I have personally decided to do that at the cost of letting go of a project. I may say that, you know what, if I need to put this 1 hour of my day into my own personal practice, I may have to let go of this side project that I was working on. And that's okay. I will double down on the things that I'm working on that are going good for me. And I will let go of some of the things that I had planned because I need to prioritize my self-care. That's the kind of discipline you need when you need to recover from burnout and also to navigate it. So there's so many aspects of it. I mean, in the end, I think that, burnout as a topic is multidimensional, and therefore the solutions are such as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much good stuff in there. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I just really agree with you in saying that, burnout can be multidimensional. It can come from so many different aspects and it can show up so differently for all of us. And I think that the biggest thing is like recognizing when it's happening and then doing what you need to do to kind of take space and, start to heal and that type of thing. And I'm curious if you can share a little bit, like, how have you seen burnout showing up kind of for yoga teachers? And do you have any tips for yoga teachers in terms of like how we can, I guess, kind of manage burnout, prevent burnout, that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've observed is that a lot of new teachers typically are the ones who encounter burnout fairly early in their career. And that's because teaching just one class is so exhausting. You're stepping in with a lot of anxiety, perhaps, depending on who you are. But there's always this kind of nervous energy, and you're always doubting yourself whether you're good enough because you're so new into it. And just being present for that 1 hour in the class and making sure that you're giving a really high quality class, and you're also good on cueing and you're leading them into the right experience, and just being fully present is it's hard. And just even remembering your sequence. I mean, again, I'm talking to the first couple of months that I started teaching and how daunting the task was. And all I would do after a class was just sleep for 3-4 hours, honestly. And I used to feel extremely ashamed about it. I'm like, oh my God, I just literally taught for 1 hour and I have to rest for 3 hours. That's ridiculous. And I remember having this conversation with Mado, and I said, listen, I'm not teaching as much as I should be at this point, and yet I feel so drained. And then she said, welcome to the yoga world. This is a very common experience that new teachers feel and have, and that's because of these reasons. And then if you're middle or you're intermediate, I mean, I don't want to use the word intermediate, but let's say if you're well into your yoga teaching journey, you're a teacher of, let's say 5 to 8 years and so on and so forth, there are different challenges. You probably have a lot of classes booked up. You probably are working on workshops and retreats simultaneously as you continue to teach. And there's digital marketing and so many aspects of our business that we need to take care of. So the challenge at every phase of our yoga teacher journey is different, and burnout can come to our lives so easily unless we are super intentional about avoiding it, unless we really make a conscious choice to have this concept in our heads and really notice when is the time to change gears and maybe, go a little bit behind, slow down our pace. And I think what works for yoga teachers, what our strength is, that we are very self-aware as people. We know how to listen to our bodies. We know what's happening. We know how to take care of ourselves. We love our yoga, and we get a lot of value and sense of care and nourishment through the yoga practice. So there are definitely things that are working for us. I would just say that making self-care sacrosanct and 100% in your life is the most important thing you can do for your well-being. What we preach, we got to walk the talk. And it's difficult. That's why I'm saying, because there are times when you're like, I need to pay my rent and I need these many classes. And I'm not going to, we have difficult choices to make every day. That's the reality of our world. I mean, it's easy to say these things, but when you're working full time, and we all know that it's incredibly hard to initially set up a journey that is financially satisfying, but it is possible. And there are a lot of people doing it. So there is that possibility, but just navigating self-care with business ambition is a tightrope to walk. So just being conscious of the traps, the thinking that can be misguided. Be conscious of, priorities. I think sometimes burnout happens for yoga teachers when you feel a little scattered. And I can give you my example. So the last 2 weeks, I have been not as productive as I have been for the last 1.5 years in my yoga life. And I started noticing that that's because right now I'm trying to do too many things at once. So I have a VA business going, and I'm working with new clients who are yoga teachers. So by the way, shameless plug in case you want a VA service. And I did this to allow yoga teachers, fellow yoga teachers, to not experience burnout, to take the load off their table and do the work for them, because I already know this stuff. So from trying to establish my VA service, doing a digital marketing course to up the game, from teaching online clients, building my own repertoire of next online offerings, and then doing the studio rounds while navigating a new city and trying to connect the dots between which street goes where, and getting to know people in the city. So many things are happening at one go that I started feeling that I'm not prioritizing. So I'm doing a lot of things, but it's a bit scattered. So just sitting and then reprioritizing things and making sure that you're only putting tasks and goals in your life, in your schedule, that you're capable of fulfilling, that are not feeling overwhelming or daunting to you, is really important. And you have to have the discipline to let go of a few things that may be absolutely dear to you, but for maybe the next quarter, and then always trying to plan your things a little less, because we all have the tendency to overplan and put a lot of things in our to-do list or in our quarterly goals. So have the tendency to underfill your cup, just put a little bit lesser goals than you think you can achieve, because subconsciously it's going to give you a little bit of ease in your head. It's not going to be overwhelming. Secondly, as you start going along achieving your goals, you will get the energy to keep going at it. There'll be this, reward of success. And thirdly, you will be a little bit more, grounded, and you will be excited about your days and the weeks ahead, because the priorities that you choose are going to be connected to your long-term goal and your why. So for me, I need to figure out, okay, great, I'm doing this VA business and I'm doing this digital marketing course. I'm doing this, I'm teaching online, I'm working for my signature offer, and I'm trying to get to know people in the city and going in the evenings to drinks or what have you. So what are the things I can take off for the next 3 months amongst all that I'm doing? What are the things that I can double down on? These are important and hard choices to make, but this is really important work when it comes to reducing burnout and overwhelm in one's life.
Amazing. That was so much good stuff. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I think as you were talking, it was just kind of like a reminder for me. I feel like I'm one of those people who's always doing like a million things at one time.
Yeah.
Like I could really resonate with you said like, oh, I haven't been as productive as, I was prior. And I can certainly feel that when I take too much on too. So really beautiful reminder for myself. And I hope that, somebody else out there also resonated with it. This conversation has been really beautiful, Juzbi. It's been awesome connecting with you. I'm curious if you can share with listeners where they can go to find you, where they can go to follow along, learn more about you, all of that good stuff.
Sure. So you can connect to me on Instagram at Juzbi Yoga. That's my first name in yoga. And I have my own website, www.juzbiyoga.com. And you can even email me. You can actually connect to me on Instagram, DM me. And yeah, let's hang out. I love to get to know fellow yoga teachers and everyone in this yoga world who wants to have a great conversation and be connected. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. This has been great.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Juzbi Walia. Make sure you go check out what she's up to at juzbiyoga.com. If you would like to continue this conversation with Juzbi and I, we had a great conversation for MBO Behind the Scenes, all about digital marketing. So that's another thing that she specializes in and something she specialized in her corporate career. So I picked her brain a little bit on digital marketing for yoga teachers. So there is a fabulous episode waiting for you over at patreon.com/MBM Yoga. So if you would like to get access to that, make sure you go and check it out. Of course, a huge thank you to our sponsor for today's episode of the show, Offering Tree. Make sure you go check them out, offeringtree.com/MBM Yoga. You can also still get access to the free mini course that we created on video on demand platforms. So if you'd like to get access to that, it is offeringtree.com/course. And as always, thank you so much for listening to the show. I am so appreciative of you taking time out of your day to listen to the pod. All right, I will see you next week. Bye for now. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the podcast. To find links, notes, resources, and everything mentioned in today and all episodes of the show, you can head on over to mbomyoga.com. You can find the podcast and myself on Facebook and social media at Mastering the Business of Yoga. And I would love for you to join the private Facebook community, Yoga Business Badasses. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please make sure you reach out to me at info@mbomyoga.com. And last of all, if you enjoyed this episode of the show, please make sure you hit subscribe and leave a review for the podcast. It would mean the world. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.